There's no better time than right now to start your own design agency. There are a wide range of platforms that offer professional looking websites without the need to code. And today I want to go over a few methods which I think are the easiest ways to make money online. So just to give you a bit of background, I've been selling digital solutions now for over 14 years. And for the last 7 years, I've been running my own design consultancy. So on one end, I'm selling digital solutions to people who know what they're doing. So this is delivering highly specialized solutions to clients, mostly done in Figma, or I'm putting together design courses for educational institutions. Now this requires a lot of experience and knowledge, which is difficult to get into. But on the other side of the spectrum, I'm working with a lot of non-technical clients where I'm designing websites, branding and hosting solutions. And this is where I think anyone with zero experience can get started and start earning money online very easily. All you need is a laptop and connection to the internet. And this is exactly how I got started over a decade ago when I first started freelancing. And the good thing is you can charge a one-off fee, which can range anything between £1,000 all the way up to £10,000 if you manage to get a really, really solid client. And you can structure it in a way where you've got them on a retainer and you're earning passive income from them every year simply just by hosting their website. Now you might be thinking, surely there are a lot of people doing this already, or am I too late to get started? Well, I've done a little bit of research for you, and I live in the UK, and according to the Federation of Small Businesses, at the start of 2023, there were over 5.5 million small businesses and 28% of them still don't have a website, with an additional 357,345 new businesses set up every year. So in the UK alone, there are over 1.84 million potential customers. And because it's a digital product, you're not actually limited to regions. So in the US, there are over 5 million new businesses set up every year. So the opportunities are endless. For me, beyond clients in the UK, I also work for clients in Europe, Dubai, South Africa, and Singapore. You just need to know how to position yourself properly and start reaching out to these clients. So the first thing you need to do is pick a platform. This is where you're going to host your website. Now, there are a few ways you can approach this. I have my own preferences, but in reality, any of these will work. So let's start off with the easiest ones. So the two easiest ways I think are viable as a solution is Wix and Squarespace. Personally, I prefer Squarespace. I host 4 different clients' websites on Squarespace, and I just think they've got really professional looking templates which you can pull off the shelf, and when you've replaced the images and the copy with something that's more in line with your clients, they're more than happy with it. It's just really simple solutions that you can provide. Wix, on the other hand, they have a lot more templates, but to me, a lot of them are just not professional looking. You just wouldn't present that to anyone as their actual website. If Wix is something that you're more familiar with, then obviously go ahead using that. And if your clients want to take things to the next level, you can open stores on both Wix and Squarespace as well, where they can sell products online, link up credit card solutions, and book in meetings. So there are loads of different e-commerce solutions that both platforms provide. On the medium side, you've got Framer and Webflow. These are a lot more customizable than Squarespace and Wix, but the learning curve is a lot steeper. Personally, I don't host anything on Framer or Webflow, but I do know some industry friends who actually use both of them. So on the hard side, you've got WordPress. Personally, I don't like WordPress. I do still have 2 clients that I'm hosting on WordPress from over a decade ago, but it's just really painful to use. You're reliant on third-party plugins and themes, and all of them work differently. They've got customized backend UI that each one of them are just slightly different. And if you don't know how to use something, you're pretty much stuck. You can't call WordPress up for technical support because the plugin you use, they're not related to WordPress, so they won't be able to help you with any issues. I would avoid it, but again, if you are familiar with WordPress, feel free to use that. And on the very hard side, you can code it. I do have 2 clients that I'm hosting websites for via HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Again, if you want to get started quickly, this is probably not the way to go, but there's no harm in learning how to code as well, because it is a very good skill set to have. It'll probably just take you 6 months to a year of learning before you can put together something professional looking. So you might be thinking, if it's so easy to put together something on Squarespace or Wix, why would people pay for you to provide a website for them? And the really, really simple answer is They just don't have time to learn how to put together a website. So a lot of the clients I've got from back then were restaurant owners. So imagine if you're a restaurant owner and you spend hours preparing food, you work long shifts, and then at the end of the day, you got to do your accounting as well. By the time you finish work, it's probably 10 p.m. The last thing they want to be doing is learn how to use Squarespace to put together a website. A lot of them are happy to just pay 2 or 3 days worth of work just so that they can have a website up and running without them having to think too much about it. Once you've picked your platform, go ahead and build a website. Now, I'm not going to be doing a tutorial here on how to use Wix or Squarespace, Webflow or Framer. There are plenty of resources about those online. The second thing you can do before you even finish building your website is to start telling people what you do and also identify yourself as a web designer. You just wouldn't believe where opportunities would come up. So previously I mentioned a gaming client that I work with. I actually met them at EGX, which is kind of Comic-Con in London. I provided some feedback on the game. They really appreciated it and asked me what I did. I just said, yeah, I'm a web designer. I provide design solutions for people. And recently, one of my jiu-jitsu coaches, he asked me if I could make a website for them. And a friend of mine, he's starting his own business. And again, he just approached me and asked me to set up a website for him. So you just need to embrace the fact that you are now a web designer and that you can provide web design solutions for your clients. And again, non-tech clients, they are not bothered at all if the website that they're given are not coded by hand. As long as it's professional looking and you can provide them with a customized website, they're more than happy with whatever it is that you've provided them. Third thing you need to do is think about the type of solutions that you're going to provide. So obviously the first thing I've mentioned, web design and web hosting. This should be the main thing you push out because I think this is the highest earning and it's the lowest effort. So the second thing you can do is actually provide posters and flyer designs. This is actually how I started out over 14 years ago. Back then, having a website wasn't really a thing. Most businesses I worked with, which is local businesses, they just had people handing out flyers and posters everywhere. But fast forward 14 years, people are still wanting posters and flyers designs, even in this digital age, because everyone's on social media nowadays. So most companies who don't actually have a website yet, they will probably have an Instagram page or a Facebook page set up already. And a lot of them do actually require post designs from designers. Again, this is something that you can sell to your customers. And I'll show you a shortcut on how you can provide flyers and post designs really simply. So 14 years ago, when I first started, I did make all the flyers from scratch in Photoshop. Now, this is very, very time consuming. And what I ended up doing after 2 or 3 flyers was I went onto Fly Heroes and just bought one of their bundles. So you can see here they have over 1,800 designs that you can choose from for Adobe Photoshop. And if you just scroll down, you can see all the different designs that they've got for a price of $89. Now, if you compare that to the price that you can charge for flyer designs, 14 years ago, I was charging £100 per flyer design. Some were a little bit more, some were a little bit less. But back then, I believe I paid 50 quid for all of the flyers. So for half the price of just one flyer that I used to sell, I was able to buy over 1,000 templates that I can just keep reusing. And all I got to do is just replace the content and images and you're good to go. The third type of service you can provide is branding and logo design. Now, personally, I don't really do this anymore because it is a lot of effort and people don't want to pay too much for it. But when you're first starting off and you're reaching out to small clients, you'll probably want to pick up a lot of this as well, because it's good practice and it improves your Photoshop and Illustrator skills. So personally, I would just recommend providing these 3 solutions. I think things to avoid is probably photography and videography. I think the barrier to entry to those are quite high. You need relatively expensive equipment to get started on those. So unless you are already pretty good at this and you're happy to pay for some expensive equipment up front, I'd probably avoid these and just get your clients to take, just decent images with their iPhones. iPhones nowadays can provide pretty good images. Next, you're going to have to think about the pricing of your solutions. You're either cheaper than your competitor or you're better than your competitor. And when you're starting out, you want to attract as many clients as you possibly can, and you would naturally lean towards the cheaper end of the pricing structure. But personally, I wouldn't recommend that because it's natural for anyone to try and push your price down. And a lot of the times, if people hadn't already reached out to these potential customers, most of them would just end up going with the first people to reach out to them. So obviously, don't price yourself out completely. I would recommend pricing it at maybe £1,500 up to £2,000 as a whole package. So you've got web design, posters, and branding all bundled up together. And the reason why I say this is because people will always negotiate with you. And if they don't negotiate, then perfect, you've got yourself a good deal. And when they do negotiate with you, you want to be able to break down different components within your services so that they can reduce the cost, but then on your end, you're reducing effort as well. Most people who are non-technical will think that web design and hosting are the highest effort out of the 3 different solutions that you're providing. But in reality, it's by far the lowest. So if someone wants to negotiate, let's say you're charging $1,500 and they say, oh, that's too expensive. Can you reduce the cost? You can say, okay, well, for $1,500, I provide web design, hosting, posters and flyer design and branding. So what I can do is I can reduce that down to $1,200 and I just provide web design and hosting, posters and flyers design. So you can structure it that way where you're reducing the cost, but you're also reducing the services. Otherwise, if you're only selling one product at a time, which most people do, they end up doing the same amount of work, but then for less cost. So I would always structure it in a way where you're providing a few different things, and then when they negotiate, you're removing one part of the service, which I think your priority should be removing branding and logo design, because that is so much effort. And then you can reduce the cost and use that time to find another client as well. And the next thing is to start reaching out to customers. Now, I don't want to get in trouble with showing anyone's data or anything like that. But what you can do is you can go on Google Maps and just type in a specific type of service. So the main clients that I worked with when I first started out 14 years ago were local restaurants, takeaway, bars, nightclubs, personal trainers, and local contractors like plumbers and electricians. And if you were around the West Midlands, Birmingham area around the 2010s, most of the posters you saw, that's just people thrown away and are on the floor, were probably my designs that I got from Flyer Heroes. Now, my priority I would recommend is personal trainer. I think personal trainers have a higher sustain rate because a lot of them, they will continue on being a personal trainer throughout their whole life. And number 2, I actually would recommend takeaways over restaurants. And actually a lot of the existing clients I've got from 10 years ago, they're actually Chinese takeaways with really good margins. So in my opinion, those 2 are the top ones to try and reach out to. So what you should do is just provide a little bit of research on why they should be creating a website. So if we look at this post by Magnetized Studio, they're saying that 94% of first impressions are design-led, and 75% of users judge a company's credibility based on its website. So you can use these statistics to reach out to these potential customers, which will help you sell the solutions that you're trying to sell to them. And then once you reach out to your local ones, you can look at wider areas. So again, as I said, digital products, they're not bound by region. So if you want to just stay nationally, you can just reach out to people in your country. And the next thing you should do is keep track of all your clients. So I used to have an Excel spreadsheet where I'll have the client's name, their email, and what date I send an email to them. After maybe 7 days, I would drop them another email again to try and reconnect. As someone who owns multiple businesses, I get a lot of emails every day, people trying to sell their services. So if I show you this email I've got, obviously I've blanked out all the details. They send a message on Thursday 25th, Friday 26th, and Saturday 27th. So every day they just kept following up. Now, I didn't actually work for these people because they're not providing something that I need right now, but I do applaud them for their consistency. So you just got to make sure you're following with your lead and just start reaching out to everyone and develop a online presence. So hopefully that's given you some insights and motivation to get started with your own design agency. And I truly think this is something where you can transition into a full-time business, earning money from anywhere in the world.